Right, we're going to start off firstly here on EU. We have the daily chart, we have EU on the top, DXY on the bottom. So what's the daily showing us? Well, yesterday we closed out as a massive bullish engulfing, which was kind of expected considering the major sell side liquidity low we had taken out on that previous day on Wednesday. It may be indicating we're going to continue bullish now after taking such sell side liquidity. We also have on DXY this high here to this lower high, which indicated weakness. So SMC divergence indicating weakness, and that played out on DXY. How much is it going to play out? Are we going to reverse in our trend and continue bullish or not? We still have more of a gap below here to fill, so price may continue lower. Right, that's still a possibility here. So far this morning we've opened up bearish. Okay, we haven't taken this previous daily high as far as I can tell, and we haven't taken a previous daily low, I don't believe, but we'll see that on a lower time frame on DXY as well. But we're opening up bearish. We'll have to see what the lower time frame looks like. So let's go down to the 4 hour, see what the structure is. So yesterday we pretty much smashed through this first 4 hour order block. Obviously the leg is larger than that, I would say. Like this high at least would be a better leg to this low. So it may be a more insignificant order block. However, it still held price for a while and then price ultimately broke through that. Now today we're in more of a premium. We can see price is pulling back towards something. So we do have gaps here below in price and a new 4 hour order block there. So when we consider our future scenarios, if we do pull back to this and find support, that may be where we continue this new trend of now, right? We haven't really broken 4 hour structure yet. Even if we use this high or this high up here, I can't say I'm convinced on the 4 hour that our trend has changed. Okay, we've only just had some bullish movement back to more of a premium, right? This order block here doesn't have an imbalance, so I don't see it as significant, but it may still hold price and send price lower, right? So we do have the possibility of making lower lows into that daily fair value gap that I showed a minute ago, but we also have the possibility of this holding a support and then price making some internal high breaking above this high. If we hold this as support and move higher, this would be a weak high for me, right? An internal high to this external leg here, and then we may be drawn towards this 4 hour order block here, which does have an imbalance and is a bit more significant as our next point of resistance. So at the moment, obviously I can see both ways with possible future support, possible future resistance. Okay, at the moment we're pulling back and we may need to see what we do in this zone. So I think we just need to see more. DXY, as you can see, is doing similar, pulling back into this 4 hour POI here. Alright, so we may see that as resistance and this as support. We're just going to have to wait for more, in my opinion. This would be the best place to look for longs from, right? And after we take some buy side liquidity or hit this resistance, that's where we may see some shorts. Let's go down to the 1 hour. So on the 1 hour, of course, we're making a higher high above, say, this high here, where we swept liquidity and made that lower low. It is still pretty corrective. As I said, it does look a bit trend line-ish, right? But at the moment, we're pulling back with a 1 hour fair value gap there with an order block behind it in the same area as that 4 hour order block as well. So I'm just going to delete this so it's not as congested on the screen. So zooming in here, price is making its corrective way back down to possibly this zone here, which we may be drawn to fill, and it may become support. If this holds out support, I'd want to see that switch on the M15 to convince me that we're going to head higher. Everything else below is mitigated, right? All our fair value gaps were already mitigated here, gap here with order block mitigated here, and then we headed higher. So in terms of a POI to draw price to, unless we're going to continue the trend to take this sell side liquidity, I see this as our only POI to then head higher. So I do see the possibility of longs from here once we're down into this zone, and then that gives a bit more lean if we do hold this again to this weak high, and if we then do go on to make a higher high, we may be now into a bullish trend because the 1 hour would have made better bullish order flow. Okay, we still wouldn't have switched on the 4 hour, but it could be an early signal there. Now if I go down to DXY, we have the same POI with the same 1 hour order block behind it, so we'll see if it meets this as a resistance and then we begin to break down or not. Alright, price is very corrective with that overnight price action, so that may happen. Let's go down to the M15, see what opportunities may look like. Right, so rolling with the possible bias of a bullish day from this zone here, right? If we come down and respect this zone, okay, we may do something like this, mitigate this area here, and then break above that M15 high, an internal high. Then we can start looking for that pullback down to the order block with imbalance left behind. Then we can aim for that possible weak high here, this trendline buy side liquidity towards this as a draw on price. There's the possibility of us sweeping some internal sell side liquidity here below this low into this 1 hour POY, momentum into the market, break of structure around there, pull back to our order block with imbalance, possible that we would have a corrective pullback leaving some inducement there, which is liquidity to mitigate before our buy order, stop loss just below the lows, right, heading towards that high there. So that's what I would be looking for if this zone plays out. Again, like I said, if this doesn't play out, I'll just wait for the day or the week to finish and need to see order flow come into the market and break down this support here. So that's it for EU. Let's move on. So here on GJ, before we go back to any USD pairs, all right, we're on the daily here. What's the daily showing us? Well, yesterday we closed out as a bearish doji, right? So after that bullish momentum on Wednesday, we may have taken some sell side liquidity or met a POY on a lower time frame that we've now rejected or being held as resistance because we closed out and that momentum died off here. So we closed out bearish. Now into today, I think we've just about taken a previous daily low. We're still currently a bearish candle, but you can see that sell side liquidity has made us pull back bullish a little bit. So let's go down to the 4 hour and see the structure. So just zoomed out for a second so you can see, of course, we met that 4 hour order block imbalance structure here, right, on Wednesday, and then that's what made us pull back to today. Now zooming back into price action here, we still have our bullish 4 hour leg, right? Our structure is still bullish with the high highs, high lows. Let's read into this price action a bit more, right? Thursday, we've pulled up, filled a 4 hour imbalance here, and it seems to be met as some sort of resistance. So that would explain that bearish doji. Okay, we haven't moved much here. This is very consolidated now at this point, pulling back down to this 4 hour POY here. Right, this imbalance here in the discount of this possible leg there is holding price. Today we've swept more sell side liquidity, and for the last 2 hours we've been bullish. So we may see this as support. Sell side liquidity may then drive us higher to make a higher high. Okay, so that's a possible scenario here, possible weak high because it failed to make a lower low. I'd just be waiting for this higher low possibly that might form around here to be formed and the structure to shift on the lower time frame. Of course, we have imbalance and order block down here as well, which price may be drawn to as more of a discount of the wider leg there. Let's go down to the 1 hour. Let's see what this consolidation looks like. All right, so on the 1 hour, I read this as the bullish leg. Okay, so all of this would be internal. Internally, of course, we've started breaking down bearish for our pullback towards this zone. Okay, we obviously have a zone down here as well, which is imbalance order block behind it, may attract price. We are still in that bearish pullback with lower highs, lower lows within our bullish leg. We took that buy side liquidity internally on Thursday, broke down, met this support, pulled back up, and now we've met a 1 hour POY also as resistance in the evening and continued making a lower low, albeit it has swept that sell side liquidity. So in terms of direction, of course, I can see both. So it's pretty much whichever way the structure goes. So if this here is to hold as support as a 4 hour and 1 hour POI, I'm going to want to see that internal M15 structure now to break out bullish, right? I'm going to want to see an internal high high and then high low to then trade up towards these buy side liquidity highs here and the previous daily high after taking the previous daily low sell side liquidity. So a bit of a mixed picture because that 1 hour internal order flow is bearish still currently, but we've met support and taken sell side liquidity, so maybe heading for buy side liquidity, right, at least above this high. So let's go down to the M15, so what that would look like as a trade. Yeah, so for me, I'd wait for this bearish internal order flow to switch again, right? I would preferably want to see price maybe come back down here again. If it makes a high low, or if it sweeps liquidity, then also fine. But as long as we get something like this, I'd want to see that break of structure around there, and then we can get a pullback, and I'm more likely going to trust this POI now because we've got a break of structure internally, which would start making these weak highs to then go higher in price. Clear break of structure here would look good. order block left behind with imbalance, of course, on the M15. Then we can set an order to go long. Something like this is what I'd be looking at. We may have some inducement around this zone here from a corrective pullback. We've already taken sell side liquidity from the previous daily low today. Just waiting for that order flow switch with that break of structure there. We can break this high as well, of course, but it's a lot further away. If I wanted to trade a bit earlier in the price action, I would need to see this leg come back down and break above again. So something like this, I think, for GBPJPY will look pretty good. So let's move on from here. So back to the USD pairs, we've got GBPUSD here. So on the daily now, it's going to have moved similarly to EU, but looking at this price action, we can see again this daily imbalance here, right? There's a lot more further to fill, so we have the possibility of going lower despite yesterday's bullish closing candle. Okay, so it was still an inside bar, I believe, of that previous bearish engulfing day. So we may head lower there and continue our trend down, at least until this point, where we may see a bit more of resistance on this pair here. We haven't taken previous daily high or low today, so let's go down to the 4 hour, see what the structure looks like as well. Yeah, we're clearly bearish still here on that 4 hour structure on GU, right? We still have that lower low, possible lower high here. So at the moment, we're holding this premium of this little leg here as resistance. You can see price is struggling to go anywhere. We haven't continued to go lower, and at the moment doesn't look like we're going higher either. So we have an imbalance here. Maybe we'll see some support around those zones, but going with structure, it's bearish. So the trend would be bearish. This would be a weak low. So if we continue going lower, I would see price come into this previous daily low sell side liquidity. On DXY with its confluence, we may be at an area of resistance, which may send price lower to meet this POI here. So then yes, we'd expect GU to then go on and make higher highs as well, right? Breaking above this high here. So we'll see if that's the scenario. We have to see what happens with the weakness or not on the index. Let's go down to the 1 hour. So as I see it, we have our external 1 hour leg here, either from this high or this high up here to this low. Of course, internally we broke structure above this high and pulled back bullish. Now we rejected this 1 hour zone here. It went very deep into that area there and then sort of rejected. And then overnight we've stayed around this zone here. Now I've drawn out that today you can see we mitigated a 1 hour imbalance and order block there, and it did successfully send price lower internally. So on the M15 we would probably have that lower low, lower high, lower low. Now there isn't loads of momentum into this, and you could say the same for over here. We have this order block and imbalance there, but we are in that bearish trend. So to be biased towards price continuing bearish now, coming down at least towards this possible future support POI here with imbalance. But again, we have to see how bearish DXY is from this possible resistance zone here. It may send price higher, okay? So we have obviously a very nice overnight buy side liquidity trend line here formed. So a bit of confusion in direction at the moment, just because where price is with its POIs. So we'd have to see that lower time frame structure, see some momentum come into the market. I do still see GU possibly going lower because the trend is there and we are such in a premium. I wouldn't want to use these premium POIs just yet to go for that buy side liquidity. But if this area here holds and we do make M15 shifts higher, this internal sell side liquidity and POI may have just been enough to go for this, what would be a weak high there, because it failed to make the lower low. So that same scenario was there. We'll have to be patient, wait for structure, wait for momentum as well in the market. So let's go down to the M15. Let's see how that looks for a possible trade scenario. So as I said, I would prefer my longs to be down here, like price to come down to a discount, hold the POI and then continue higher. With this consolidated sort of trend line here with this buy side liquidity, we've now swept the lows of Asia, possible POI over here as well. We may just break above this high here, pull back and then head for that high. It's a possible scenario while DXY heads for more sell side liquidity at the previous daily low. Okay, DXY has made a bullish break above here, but we'll see what happens with that. I'm not too confident trading in this zone right now, but I do see the potential to at least come to the other side of Asia or this sell side liquidity trend line and high. Okay, I don't like trading from the middle of nowhere. Again, this would be the best scenario for me would be down here if price was to come down, form some structure, right, sweep that sell side liquidity and then break above, and then we could look for highs. I'd be more comfortable with something like this. Okay, so we'll see what happens there. I'm just going to be patient, but that's the possible scenarios that I see. So let's move on to another pair. So we have AU again. I'll stick with AU. You can see this morning on the daily we've taken that previous daily low sell side liquidity. Previous day was a bullish doji, which was a slowing of that bearish momentum after taking that sell side liquidity. So let's go down to the lower time frame. We'll see what that looks like. So structure here is still bearish, right? Lower low, lower high, lower low. Now price did pull back from this lower low and taking that sell side liquidity. Didn't quite come into that 4-hour order block as I would have liked, but we got into the imbalance a little bit. Price went bearish from there, but has so far failed to make a lower low. So possibly we're going to pull back for this weak high to take that buy side liquidity and then mitigate this. So we may be bullish for the time being if price continues in this way, with the sell side liquidity from previous daily low having been taken now. Price may ignore this and just continue and make that lower low, but at least if we do get that structure shift, we have a target to head in mind for this previous daily high and this 4-hour order block, which may pose as some sort of resistance. Let's go down to the 1 hour, see what the structure is like. Now a couple of things to discuss on the 1 hour. Again, we had that pullback, right? Didn't quite mitigate these zones that I would have liked, okay, but we headed bearish, making this still a possible weak low, right? And then internally, even though we failed to take that low for now, we've pulled back again, filled this imbalance here, gone on to make a lower low, right? Ultimately, after this sort of complex continuation here, where we've filled this imbalance and then made a lower low. Now today again, if we look at this internal structure where we've got these lower highs and lower lows, we've got this 1 hour POI here which may become resistance, and we are correctively pulling back towards this zone here. So I think this would be a good place to look for possible shorts. Okay, the only negatives I'm seeing at the moment is we've taken that sell side liquidity and we may have this weak high if we don't go on to take this low. However, trend still bearish, internal trend looks bearish as well, and ultimately we may come down and take this sell side liquidity here. We're not getting a massive burst of momentum from this previous daily low sell side liquidity, so that gives me a bit more confidence about this area here. Now our other negatives would be DXY mitigating this zone and continuing bearish would continue bullish here. We may fill this sort of area here and find some support, or take that sell side liquidity and go bullish back up into this area, and that could go with our trend. But as I've said before, the correlation between these two isn't like EU, right? I just look out for possible areas of support and weakness here that may coincide with a weak or strong US dollar. Okay, so I think this looks good here for shorts, right? We have this POI, we have that internal structure that's still going lower, even though we missed this area for now. Corrective pullback. So let's see what the M15 looks like for a trade. All right, so here on the M15, you can see in Asia, they swept that buy side liquidity, broke down, making that lower low. So the structural lower low is very clear here, break of structure, lower low there, left behind M15 order block with imbalance, which is within this 1 hour order block as well. Again, my only concerns are this sell side liquidity and what's possibly happening with DXY. However, this is so corrective, it's leaving so much sell side liquidity built up that it may look good for order from here, you know, with a stop loss just below that, just above those highs there. All right, so something like this is definite possibility to head back towards those weak lows there for whatever your target would be. All right, we may get a continued corrective pullback into this zone here and then come for all that sell side liquidity, right? Or for the safer option would be wait for this to hold, you know, price may come up here and create some structure and then break down, and then you pull back to it and then continue, right? So you may get a second chance here, or a better chance even, where we've got that structure, taken some internal buy side liquidity fresh, and then you can set your order to go low from there. Okay, smaller stop loss obviously, and just head towards these lows here. You may get something like that. I do like how this looks, because if we look at DXY, as I said, they're not completely correlated. We have made that M15 high, we're pulling back. We may respect this zone here with this M15 order block, right, which did sweep sell side liquidity and then continue more bullish towards this 1 hour POI. So So I don't think it looks horrible at all. And if I just quickly switch over to New Zealand dollar, which is pretty much a similar pair, of course, we have the same build up, though we've taken more sell side liquidity here. There's a corrective build up into this M15 order block here, so it's very, very similar, right? You might want to put that above the high there, head towards those lows. Those are two that are more immediate. So that's everything for today. So I hope that was clear. I hope you gained value from that. Any questions, let me know in the comments. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys soon.